of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC-007 Business Communication for MBA program. Presenting Block 2 Oral Communication at Work, Unit 5 Listening and Reading Skills, Part 1. In Part 1, we will discuss Introduction, Meaning and Importance of Listening, Types of Listening, Effective Listening, Characteristics of a Good Listener, Process of Listening, Barriers to Listening, and Overcoming Barriers to Listening.
Unit 5. Listening and Reading Skills. After studying this unit, you will be able to explain the meaning of listening, describe different types of listening, discuss the concept of effective listening, explain the process of listening, understand the barriers of listening, explain the process of reading, and understand the critical reading skills. Introduction. Listening and reading are two important components of any kind of communication. We often come across certain instances where people do not perform their duties as well as they are not able to comprehend the instructions given to them. This shows that they have not listened to the instructions attentively. Therefore, it is important to understand the concept of listening and how one can develop effective listening habits. Effective listening is very important for the success of individuals and organizations both. In this unit, we will discuss different aspects of listening and understand the characteristics of a good listener. Reading is another component of communication. In business organizations, reading is an important aspect that involves reading the annual reports, manuals, policies, etc. on a daily basis. Reading skills are important at the workplace in terms of speed and selection. In this unit, along with listening, we will discuss different aspects of reading. Meaning and importance of listening. Listening is a form of oral communication. It involves 4 distinct components which form the whole concept of listening. These are: first, hear; second, comprehend; third, retain; fourth, recall. Listening is a two-way process which involves the exchange of views, ideas, and emotions of the two parties involved. There is a difference between listening and hearing. Hearing is a part of listening as mentioned above, but it is considered to be a physical activity. So when we talk about the components of listening, we have to include the comprehension part also. Since listening is a mental activity, comprehension plays an important role. The other two components, recall and retain, if aligned with the comprehension part, makes listening effective. Listening skills are important for business communication as it helps organizations in becoming more productive. Since listening is a natural process, it can only be inspired by increasing concentration and being conscious. Listening can be verbal and non-verbal. Verbal involves the speaking aspect and non-verbal listening involves observations. Listening has certain features. These are as follows. Features of good listening. Listening can benefit in many ways. The most important ones are listed below. First, reduces miscommunication. Proper listening leads to comprehending, retaining, and recalling whatever has been said more effectively, thereby reducing miscommunication and errors. Second, increases confidence. Proper listening increases the confidence of the speaker as well as the receiver and builds a strong bond between the two. Third, increase productivity. If the listening process is appropriate, then a proper communication builds between the superior and the subordinate. This helps in building a good rapport, which in turn will result in employees being motivated. This will then increase productivity of the organization. Fourth, saves time and cost. If listening between different levels of the organization is proper, then the chances of distortion in the information is quite less, which results in reduction in time loss, thereby reducing the cost. Types of listening. Many experts have suggested different types of listening. It can vary from individual conversation to body language to group discussions. Here, we will discuss 8 types of listening which are commonly used. These are: first, biased listening; second, sympathetic listening; third, empathetic or therapeutic listening; fourth, critical listening; fifth, informational listening; sixth, appreciative listening; seventh, selective listening; eighth, rapport listening. Let us discuss these one by one. Biased listening. As the name suggests, this type of listening is based on preconceived notions and expectation. Here the listener wants to hear only what she or he wants to listen. This may be subconscious. This type of listening usually occurs at workplaces and happens where the personal relationships are stressed. Sympathetic listening. This type of listening shows the caring attitude of the listener. She or he understands what the person is saying. This type of listening occurs amongst close friends or relatives. In this type of listening, body language, type signing, nodding, etc. plays an important role. Empathetic or therapeutic listening. This type of listening is similar to sympathetic listening, but in this case, the listener not only just listens but experiences the feelings of the speaker, herself or himself. At times, this type of listening can affect the listener deeply. This is also known as therapeutic listening. Critical listening. This type of listening is judgmental in nature. Here, the listener gives a critical view of what is being said. This type of listening is good for businesses as it helps the listeners to stick to the point and streamline the things. Using critical listening helps in: first, decision making; second, analyzing the situations; and third, finding solutions to the problems. Informational listening. As the name suggests, this type of listening involves paying attention to the kind information being conveyed by the speaker. It is quite similar to critical listening, as in this we retain the important points and discard the non-essential points. This type of listening usually has technical and practical centers. For example, in a meeting about a new product launch or new marketing campaign, the listeners tend to use the combination of critical and informational listening. Appreciative listening. Listening for pleasure is helpful in certain cases. We all love having deep conversations. This type of listening can be listening to music, which relaxes you, etc. It is usually done on one's own and involves mutual appreciation for whatever is being listened to. Selective listening. This means that we tend to hear only these things or information which we actually want to hear. This is only listening which has negative connotations attached with it. It may result in miscommunication. At times, we tend to drift away or get lost while struggling hard to hear only the selective portions. Rapport listening. As the name indicates, this type of listening involves a combination of many other types of listening which have already been discussed. This is usually used when we want to develop a relationship with someone. This type of listening involves showing interest with an inclination to respond appropriately. We have learned some styles of listening, but there can be many more as the listening skills of each individual is different. These types helps us in understanding which type of listening we should use in making the communication effective. Effective listening. Effective listening skills are important in personal as well as professional lives. Around 70 to 80% of our working hours are spent in communicating in one form or the other. These are certain components of effective listening. These are: first, concentration or focus; second, body language; third, language; fourth, avoiding noise. Concentration or focus. This is the first and foremost component when we talk about effective listening. Focus should be there when we listen to someone. This shows a positive attitude and respect to the speaker. At times, we tend to lose contact with the speaker and drift away in our own world while the speaker keeps on speaking. In this case, you should refocus and try to understand what the speaker wants to say. Body language. An appropriate body language helps to give a positive message to the speaker. This involves active listening. Non-verbal clues make a lot of difference while being in tense or a difficult situation. Language. Language or use of appropriate words is very important for being an effective listener. In certain instances, it is seen that the speaker uses some complex words and sentences, and it becomes difficult for the listener to understand what the speaker is saying. In this case, the speaker may be communicated to make his or her language simple so that it communicates the exact message. Avoid noise. At times, during meetings or other important discussions, our concentration is interrupted by external noise like beeping of phones, someone peeping in a meeting room, etc. In this case, the phones should be switched off or kept on silent mode and doors closed while an important discussion is on. This helps in making the process of listening more effective. A checklist should be followed for effective listening. These are: first, practice listening; second, reflect on conversation; third, focus on conversation. Characteristics of a good listener. We have learned various types of listening and how listening can be made more effective. Now, let us learn what are the characteristics of a good listener. There is a relationship between the personality traits of an individual and listening. Though much has not been explored on this front. However, we will list a few characteristics of a good listener which can make the process of listening more effective. These are: first, verbal competence; second, taking notes; third, intelligence; fourth, motivation; fifth, hearing ability; sixth, environmental distractions. Let us discuss these in brief. Personality traits. It is not necessary that a good listener possesses a great physique. However, the body language of the listener, like making eye contact with the listener, does impact listening. Verbal competence. This is important to become a good listener. A good vocabulary helps in effective listening and aids in retention. Taking notes. While listening, making notes does not affect listening. However, it will help to carefully synthesize the information at a later stage too. Intelligence. A good listener must be intelligent enough to comprehend what the speaker is saying. Motivation. A listener should be interested in the topic, which will then motivate him or her to listen to the speaker. If motivation is not there, then there are chances that listening may not be good. Hearing ability. A good listener possesses good hearing ability. Hearing does not restrict only sound. It is how much you gather from the conversation. Environmental distractions. Good listeners have the ability to adjust to the distracting elements. They do not get deterred from the external distractions. A good listener, therefore, is the one who can overcome all the limitations and can focus on the conversation. Process of listening. Listening in itself is a whole process and involves different steps. These are 6 steps involved in the listening process. These are: first, identification; second, reception; third, comprehension or understanding; fourth, evaluation; fifth, retention; sixth, respond. Identification. This is the first step in the process of listening, which involves identifying the speech and sound. It is deliberate in nature, as an effort has been made to identify the sound and select the important message. Reception. This is the second step. The hearing ability plays an important role in receiving the message. Since listening is an active process, the meaning from both verbal and non-verbal clues are to be interpreted. Comprehension or understanding. In this step, the listener tries to determine the meaning of the topic or words being spoken. This is like decoding the message. This occurs when there is a synchronization between the speaker and the listener. Evaluation. In this step, the listener tries to evaluate the information received both qualitatively and quantitatively. Through this step, the listener forms an opinion about the message received. Retention. This step shows the ability of the listener to retain the message. Here, the listener categorizes the information gathered by him or her for the future. Usually, the information is stored in the memory for future use. Respond. The last step is using the information stored at the right time and right place. The listener can respond through verbal or non-verbal clues. The process of listening is quite crucial than the process of reading, as chances of miscommunication and misunderstanding is more here. the retention may be low, leading to forgetfulness, which may lead to mistakes. Therefore, developing proper listening skills is important. Barriers to listening. There are a number of different barriers to listening. Identifying the barriers to listening is important in developing effective listening skills. These are as follows. First, selective listening. As discussed in types of listening, this type of listening becomes a barrier. We all listen selectively at some time or other. It is important at times to avoid distraction, but it can become a barrier if the listener has the following issues while listening selectively. First, preconceived notions about the speaker. Second, biases about the topic. Identifying any preconceptions before the review meeting will help reduce this barrier. Second, speed of speech versus speed of thought. There is a considerable difference between the speed at which people talk and the speed at which they think. The average person speaks at about 125 words per minute, whereas thinking speed is usually 500 words per minute. We all have a tendency of thinking faster than we can realize. Therefore, there are chances that we overthink about what is being said and reach the conclusion before the speaker finishes his or her speech. This acts as a barrier to effective listening. Third, lack of interest. This is one of the most common barriers to listening. If the listener is not interested in the topic, then it acts as a hindrance in the listening process. Fourth, beliefs and attitudes. We all have some opinions on various issues and hold specific values and traits. Moreover, at times we strongly feel about certain subjects and value specific behavior. As a result, we may react emotionally if someone challenges our beliefs and attitudes. This reaction can act as a barrier in the listening process. Fifth, reaction to speaker. At times, listeners tend to react to the speaker rather than listening to what she or he is saying. As a result, the message in the speech gets lost, which in turn makes listening less effective. Sixth, repetition of words. Over-repetition of words and phrases is distracting. Likewise, the use of unfamiliar, for example, jargon words, can also be a distraction. Another important point to note is that words can mean different things to different people. Therefore, too fast or too slow speed of a speech along with repetition of words can cause confusion in the minds of listeners, hence acting as a barrier to listening. Seventh, external distractions. This can come in different disguises such as background noises, that is, a telephone ringing or a fire engine racing down the road, physical discomfort, that is, too warm, too cold, uncomfortable seat, lightning in the room or distracting pictures on the wall. Some distractions are within our control while others are uncontrollable. Therefore, it is important to try and avoid these distractions from becoming barriers. These are the major barriers to the process of effective listening. However, there can be other barriers as well. Overcoming barriers to listening. It is important to understand the ways of overcoming the barriers to listening. The following steps can be considered to reduce barriers to listening. First, reduce distractions. Second, prioritize listening over speaking. Third, practice reflecting instead of deflecting. 4th, asking questions. 5th, listen carefully before advising. Minimize distractions. To avoid getting distracted, ensure that you are physically facing the speaker and make frequent eye contact with them while they are speaking. Make sure you are seated or standing comfortably. Put the cell phone on silent mode. This motivates the speaker as she or he will get the undivided attention. Listening over speaking. In communication, self-control is crucial. If you think you are a talkative person, consider practicing self-control in communication. Allow time for the other person to talk. One should wait until a colleague or teammate has finished speaking before responding. Finally, pay attention to how the audience reacts while one is speaking. If you realize the audience is distracted, ask them questions to get them to talk more and bring their attention back to the conversation. Practice reflecting instead of deflecting. To create a bond with the speaker, the listener should demonstrate interest. Avoid connecting your experiences to their predicament. A better strategy is to just listen and respond with comments that are focused on the other person's circumstances. This demonstrates that you are truly interested in their point of view. Deflecting should be avoided at all costs if you want to listen well. Instead, try reflecting. Reflecting entails paraphrasing what the speaker has said back to them. It also involves asking a follow-up question based on what you have heard is another way to reflect. It assures the speaker that the listener is attentive and is interested in his or her talk. Ask questions. A good listening approach is to ask questions. Focus on asking questions that are intended to extract more information from the speaker and are based on what they have previously said. The finest queries are non-judgmental and originate from anything spoken previously by the speaker. Listen fully before advising. When someone discusses a problem or worries with you, it might be tempting to provide advice, especially if you want to assist them address that difficulty. Wait to provide advice until the speaker clearly requests it. Even if you want to provide advice, consider if the speaker is actually seeking help or simply searching for an outlet to vent. Instead of giving advice, try expressing empathy with phrases like, "That sounds difficult," or try pondering.
You are listening to audiobook by School of Management Studies, IGNOU, for MBA program. Course code MMPC-007 Business Communication. Block 2 Oral Communication at Work. Unit 5 Listening and Reading Skills. Part 1. Course Coordinator Professor Neeti Agrawal from School of Management Studies, IGNOU. Voiceover by Santosh Bharati. Edited by Tarannum Jahan. Program assisted by Jagbandhu Jana. And program produced by Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.